Welcome to the Rest Round with Butch Hiles and Garry Hashman.
All right, guys, back with the Rest Round, obviously Butch and Garry here. So we're going to get into a little bit. So today, what we thought is, we took some time off and did some stuff. And really, even during that time off, we didn't talk a lot because this is how you and I connect. Because I don't know how you are, Garry, but I've told, just so people know, I never talk on the phone. I'm trying to do better because it is my job. And the reason I do that is there's no good reason. But part of it is because my job is talking to people besides the gym. I'm a sales rep. I talk all day. So when it comes time to actually talk to my friends, those are the ones that suffer. My wife, my family, everything, because sometimes I just want to shut off. So I bring that up a lot because I don't want people to ever take that like too seriously. Like, hey, like Butch didn't talk to me, because it does happen sometimes. And this is like a public service announcement that it came out the intro. So I apologize. But I want to say it because there's been a couple of times at the gym where people will be like, hey man, Butch is mad at me. Cause sometimes I read a text, and we talk about this all the time too. Like, I'm driving 90% of my work life. Right. And so I'll read and I don't want to text and drive. So I'll be like, I'll answer it later. 9 times out of 10, I forget. And then people think I'm mad at them, right? Because of bad communication. But point is, here we are. And there's my excuse for everybody else.
I think we both suffer that. We've even had messages go back and forth where you'll message me, I don't get back to you in what would be a normal, timely manner. It'd be like 2-3 days go by and be like, oh shit, I forgot to message Butch back. And yeah. I think it's probably been the same on your side. I'll message you, and then I'm like, he hasn't messaged me. He must have got busy or forgot about it. And so then I'll shoot that extra little feeler message like, hey.
Yeah. Which is perfect. And the good thing is we get it now, right? Like, you can say that to a lot of people, but sometimes people don't get it. The cool thing about most of the time with men, guys, is, you can not talk for years and pick up right where you left off, for the most part, right? Where women aren't always like that, and they get a little bit more. That's why I usually make fun of my friends when they get too crazy, because I'm like, hey, what are you acting so girly now? But no, I get it. So anyway, enough of that. Like, so we don't have a plan, but what I do want to, let's kind of get into what we were talking about before we started hitting recorder, if that's okay with you, Garry. And I'll let you leave that. We're talking about belt checker, but let's talk, like, tell me how that's going, and this is a future guest we might have, and some other stuff we got going on.
Yes. So we kind of started talking about people being lost in jiu-jitsu, and like that, leaving a team or being asked to leave a team for whatever reason. And I was kind of in that situation before I joined up with you guys in Charleston, where it was like, you're kind of floating around. You don't feel, maybe you're a higher rank, a brown belt or something like that. And you don't really want to be under somebody else. Belt checker and the guys at, I think it's BJJ Travelers, I believe they were the ones who started it. But they kind of like started this thing where it was like, hey, if you're kind of in between, you can't find a school, you can be under us. And they had that whole thing they went through with IBJJF about 4 or 5 years ago, where they didn't want to give credentials to those guys who were under the belt checker guys. But I think it's important because personally, I think IBJJF is really kind of standing on the throats of the competitors. And they know they're the number one place in town as far as like, if you want to be accredited. I just don't think it's fair. I think it's a bit of a siphon on a lot of guys who are hobbyists, who are, especially guys who already don't have a ton of money if they're a college student who's trying to compete. And then you're asking them to pay an annual fee. And then on top of that annual fee, you have to pay every time you go to a competition. And now it's upwards of $140 to compete, or $150 to compete. That doesn't include your travel. If you travel a far distance, because IBJJF is in select cities. So if you're in Ohio, you might not see them unless you go to New York or New Jersey or something like that. So now you have to pay for the travel, the stay. It's a lot of siphoning money out of guys who might not otherwise have it. I was one of those guys that I didn't go to a lot of IBJJFs, not because I didn't feel like I could compete, but because I was like, man, this is an awful lot of money for me to have possibly one match.
Yeah, I've never, as a guy that runs a tournament, right, I've never understood it. We've talked about it on here before. It's like I do, like, when I say never understood, I get it, right? Like, here's what happens. You fall into the name brand. So IBJJF, this is not an anti-IBJJF podcast either, right? I think we both want to say that, but it just means that it's not my preference. Like, you know, I fought for good comparison. For example, I fought Golden Gloves. I did not like that. It was ran exactly the same, and maybe that's where IBJJF got it, meaning that you've got to in fact, Golden Gloves goes an extra step. You have to register your team. So like if you fought Golden Gloves or I fought Golden Gloves, to say that we're under the rest round, right? For example, well, then that costs $250 a year to use that name, even though you're walking in the ring. And that used to piss me off so bad, because it's like, you know, they're yelling, you know, Gary Hashman, and why could they not just say where you're coming from, right? Like, that's it. And they were like, no, that costs an extra amount of money. Then on top of that, just, you know, I will bash that Golden Gloves thing, but especially locally, man, just get on my USA Boxing, get on my nerves so bad. I was a professional corner man, had cornered fights in King of the Cage, had corner fights in New Jersey, Atlantic City, New York, like everywhere in the country. In fact, outside of the country, in Canada, everywhere. And then you got this rinky-dink organization throwing a fight with 20 people at it, telling me that I need to be getting licensed as a cornerman for $50. And the stupid thing, and I remember like going to a couple of these events, because we had some people that later, when I was training people, and I got yelled at for clapping, you know, like the guy's like, you can't clap. And I'm like, I can't clap, like, F you, you know what I mean? And then they're like, well, we'll throw you out of here. And I was like, you know, I had a piss poor attitude, but I still, you know, like, because of all the stealing of money, you know what I'm saying? Like, just like IBJJF, like the fighters got to register every year. And I'm not having the same problem. And again, I'm trying to make this not an anti-IBJJF thing, but, you know, I've got some problems with that, you know, because like I didn't register my rank. You know, I'm a fourth, will be like a fourth degree black belt, right? I didn't register my rank, signed up late because I don't care. There's not like anybody beating down the door to do IBJF. So they put me on a 2-year hold because I didn't register in time. And so like now when people want to sign up, for example, Peyton always has people out in Virginia, and he wrote me today when I sign up, but they can't find my name. I'm like, I know you can't find my name because I have to keep jumping through hoops. And then finally I was like, you know, like, I'm going to go ahead and just get this done, you know, for the people, for like, out of all the people in our affiliation, which is hundreds, you know, if not thousands, we only got like a handful that want to compete, but I don't want to screw them. And so I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet and go through the hoops. And then I still can't do it. They're like, you got to sign up for this stupid course about, I don't even know what it's about, and I can't find it. And like, and then of course, I think you, Gary, and I think we talked about the, you know, the fact that they are Portuguese, you know, speaking Portuguese, it's hard to get direction from the IBJJF. Like, I'm already aggravated. Just tell me what I need to do. Tell me where I need to give your damn money so people can use my name. And we don't have, because the problem is, you know, we can use Marcelo's name, but sometimes like when you sign up, he's got to sign off on it. It takes forever to get a hold of him. Right. So it'd be so much easier if I could just do it. But
well,
anyway.
and I do want to speak to the positives of it, right? Because the positive of it is that there is legitimacy. You're not going to go to an IBJJF. If somebody has an IBJJF card, and it says that, you know, Butch Hiles is an IBJJF accredited black belt, then there's no way that anyone can say that you're not. And it is validation, and it is reassuring the person that yes, this person is a black belt. And I don't want it, like I said, they are they are the number one jiu-jitsu competition as far as especially in the gi, but the number one competition in the United States. Now there are others that are kind of nipping at their heels right now as far as like taking that. But when it comes to accredited people and like being able to rely upon verification of those people, IBJJF definitely does it better than just about anybody. And so that's good. So if you are looking for a school, and I want to make sure that who I'm going to is a good guy, an accredited guy, the IBJJF has done that for us. And so I appreciate that. My only thing is like the model that Belt Checker has, and if we get those guys on here, we'll definitely do a deep dive into it. But the model is that the community tells you whether or not these guys are real or not. Yeah. So you go on there and you might see 5 or 6 guys that are in your area that are also on there. They will go on there and vouch for you. And they'll be like, I've trained with Gary. I've seen him in competitions. I know that he is a black belt, that he had his black belt from Butch and last December. And so they will go on there, they give you a vote, and after you get enough votes, then you're verified. Which to me seems just as valid as any other verification process that you know, you were talking about like Marcelo has to sign off on you, but anybody can sign off on anybody.
Yeah.
On there, if Marcelo signed off on you, that would be one vote. You still have to have, you know, if you're going to be a black belt, you have to get 1,000 points in votes, which depending on rank, like, you know, if a black belt votes you're valid, then it's 100 points. So you got to get 10 black belts, or, you know, a slew of other people in order to votes in order to validate your rank as black belt. And I think that is just as efficient and just as honest verification as anything else.
Yeah, no, and actually that would be great. I look forward if we do a deep dive on it and learning more, really, because anything I say now is a guess on what they do. And I believe I signed up for that website even before we ever talked about it, a long time ago, just because I ran into it or something, maybe saw it somewhere. But there was a time, and we don't have that time as much. I still hear every now and then some, like a couple stories where somebody gets busted, you know, pretending to be something, but that used to be a big thing, like definitely prior to like people understanding the internet, which is hilarious, right? Like to say that now, but I mean, I was, you know, active and alive during the time that people didn't really use the internet, like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like you could go, and it happened in West Virginia several times where people came here and said they were a black belt under Hoyler Gracie. They said they were a black belt under Hoist Gracie. They said they were a black belt under blah, 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 right? And it was a time where it wasn't easy just to ask these people. You know, then when it was easy to ask people, we didn't have, it was, we kind of made fun of it, we called it the BJJ police, right? And I think we talked about, like, Don Cunanan was on here from Morgantown, but he was definitely one of them. And you know, I wasn't vocal on the internet, but I would catch people and send them to the ones that were vocal. You know, like, you know, funny enough, but the point is, it still does happen. And then the other thing that we talked about, which would be good on that part, because people need to understand what we mean by this, because people leave affiliations, like you said, and they get kicked out, and then they're left in the middle of nowhere, right? And so the easy answer for a lot of people would be like, I'll just find a new person. But like, that's not as easy as what you said. And then sometimes, you know, what you think, because also these people, a lot of them want affiliation fees, and like maybe you got out of that, you want to get back in that. I know, like, I was in the same thing. I'm not big on that stuff anymore either, especially when you're at a rank of black belt. And quite honestly, you're not going to see these people that often. And like, to be paying somebody a monthly fee when, quite frankly, all they're doing is, you know, they are doing something of value. But for me, like, I mean, I can see Marcel a lot more, but I don't see people a lot, right? And to me, it wouldn't make sense for me to be paying all these affiliations fees for something that I'm not getting, right? And you can blame, I'm not blaming the other people. I'm also busy, so I'm not traveling, not doing this. Like, Marcella has headquarter meetings all the time. I'm like one of the only people, if not the only one, that never goes. And I will be honest, I have no intention of ever going. I'm not, like, I can, I guess. It's just hard for me to, like, when I have free time and I can pick a vacation. There was a time I picked jujitsu. There was, and I did. I've got pictures to prove it, right? Like, I went on a cruise with the Gracies. I did some stuff. But now when I pick vacation, like, it's like, Lisa, where you want to go? Like, I have to do something for my family to stay married, right? So
Yeah.
those days are gone.
Well, and very much the same with me, right? Like, I want to be up there and train with you guys a lot more. And I wish I try and make it up as much as I can. But when I have free time, it's like, that's family time now. There was a stretch of time from, you know, 2011 to 2017, 18, where every other weekend I was going to a competition. Every other weekend, it was about me. And so now that I don't compete so much anymore, now that I don't, you know, I've backed off on all that other stuff. My extra time goes to my family now, and I think I owe it to them.
You do. There's a balance, right? Like I hear people talk, and I get it, and that's what a lot of simple fights are just that, right? Like, if you don't see your wife or your husband, and you feel like you're neglected, then your attitude changes, and then you're picking at them just because you're mad at that. and they don't even know why you're picking at them, right? And it just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. So like the bottom line is, and you know what, Hoist Gracie told me this one time, a long time, this is, you know, early 2000s, but you know, so long ago, I don't remember the exact wording, but we're talking, I was like, how do you manage this? Because you've got 300 and some academies, you travel the world, and you know, you're ambassador for jiu-jitsu and stuff. And he just said, when it's my wife's and family's time, it's their time. Like, meaning that he's like, when I'm finally home, I set my phone down, I shut it off. I do not like, now I don't, and I did listen to him verbatim, and I did do that for a while. I don't do that per se, but I do give them my undivided attention the best that I can. I'm not going to pretend I don't like scroll on something and answer something, but my wife and I kind of have this deal, and we don't always follow it either, but we do the best that we can. But at 9 o'clock, you know, after the kids are hopefully in bed and put where they're supposed to be, and everybody's taken care of, and it's our time to go into our bedroom and turn on our TV show and spend the time, we try to stay off the phone. And I'll even apologize, like if there's a work email or something that I really need to answer. Typically it's not jujitsu stuff, it's actual real work. I say, hey, like, I apologize, I just got to answer this really quick, I've got to get to this. And then, you know, unfortunately, sometimes when I start doing that, then it snowballs down, and it is what it, or I'll be honest too, like, you know, it's not all perfect, you know, but you know, sometimes I want to watch stuff she doesn't want to watch. So she has freedom to scroll Facebook and Instagram for watching Ancient Aliens or Pawn Stars or some other show on History Channel that she could rather shoot herself in the face for. But it is what it is, you know. But let me segue into this, because I don't want to forget, but because it is a perfect segue, or was. Speaking of not going on vacations and not doing jiu-jitsu, you have a jiu-jitsu vacation coming up, right?
I do.
Contradicting ourselves, right? But kind of not.
It is a slight contradiction, but I've backed off on all my trips now that my guys that were at Bobcat have a solid place to train in Dig City. I've kind of not been going up so much to see those guys. Now, a couple things happens with that. One, that distance, you know, like I don't get to see them all the time, so I feel like I'm cheating them in their jiu-jitsu journey a little bit, because I still feel, even though they have a new instructor, I still feel obligated to give them new stuff, new material and stuff like that. But two, all those close relationships that I've made, I miss being around those people, you know. So I had a very, very solid group of guys who were not just loyal to jiu-jitsu, but somewhat loyal to me, and I created really good friendships, not unlike our friendship, and so not seeing those guys, it's rough. And so I want to see those guys. I set up a little thing, kind of shot it out to people in Charleston, people back in Ohio, and guys down here in North Carolina, for us to get together. It's just going to be, 3 nights, 4 days of jiu-jitsu, possible skiing, and then probably drinking and cards and shenanigans.
What, can you give, I mean, you don't have to give the locations or details or nothing, but can you give me the nights again, since we're on here? I know it's in
It is March 10th through 13th.
Okay.
And it's in Tazewell, Virginia, I think is the name of the place.
Oh, okay. I think it's Tazewell, but I know exactly where you're at. Yep.
And so we won't be too far from the Bluefield guys.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is, I've already talked to some of the guys down there and said, hey, what I want to do is kind of like, you actually kind of inspired this at one of the promotion days you had, where you had all the black belts kind of come out, show move and whatnot. And so we're going to do a mini seminar. Anybody that's an upper rank, or really just anybody who has something to show that they've been working on, let's drill that. We're going to learn that, teach it to the group, and then get some hard rounds in, and then go back, and after we get done beating each other's brains out, we'll go and drink.
That sounds perfect. Well, and here, ironically, I think, not ironically, and a good thing, you probably heard me on 1,000 podcasts, I say ironically, and then switch it because I'm trying to fix that word. It's unused properly or not used properly. But anyway.
You use it the same way Alanis Morissette does, that nothing in that song is actually ironic.
Yes, exactly. So I'm always like, I can't use that word because that's not proper use. But anyway, actually, I think I got my delays just figuring out if I was going to be free for work or not. But I had heard the other day, unrelated, but I was like, the 11th I might be free, which is this weekend that we just talked about. So that actually works. So that's what I'm saying. It's not ironic. It was coincidentally I had heard, which is a good thing. because that's what I was always on the fence because of the same reason. So it just so happens that basically that weekend is my anniversary. More or less, we got married on 3/6/9, just like the I believe that's a Little John song.
Damn, you're fine.
Walls,
Yeah.
that is our anniversary song, because it just matches up. But it all works out. So I was trying to work around the anniversary. But anyway, so we can make that happen. So I think that's an awesome idea. Like I remember us talking about that, and I said, here's one of my dreams, and you made it a reality. And then, ironically, which I think is the proper word of ironic, I was like, I can't probably do it. So like after we did all that, but it doesn't matter because either way, I was planning and popping in and popping out. So I think it's going to work out. Even if I still have to pop in and pop out, Tazewell is probably 2 hours from me, I think.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately when we're training, we're going to pop over to Bluefield.
Okay.
And we're going to use their facility to get all the training and / mini seminar or whatever in. So yeah. And obviously we kind of whittled it down to a select group of people. And if you did get invited, don't think anything about it. Doesn't mean that you're a bad guy. It was just my close group. And anybody who might be listening, don't feel like you got slighted if you didn't get invited, because you're probably going to either A, get invited to the next one, or two, it was just like the people that I'm closest to, I was trying to get a reason for them to get together. I've got a lot of people down here that I've made friends with. I've got a lot of people back home and in Charleston that are old friends. And it was just like, these are a solid group. I would like to get them together. And maybe slightly a little bit selfish of me, hope that everybody gets along so well. They're like, man, we need to get together again.
Yeah.
I'll go down there and see those guys in North Carolina once, or, hey, Gary, let's take a trip up to Ohio or Charleston. And that's really what it's about, is trying to grow these connections that I have already.
Yeah. And no, and I think it's beautiful. I think that was I had a similar dream, and the dream was similar. I was like, because I live in West Virginia, and the thought always was there's all these facilities, because my wife and I kind of will break away from the kids and go to a cabin. But they're usually on places that we don't use, meaning you can hike, you can zip line, you can do this and do that. We literally just go to the cabin and sit in a hot tub and just have time for us to be away from the kids. That's kind of our, we're getting away. And one of those thoughts was, the same thing. It's like, man, if we got all together and trained and then did some stuff together, beautiful. Right. So I think, in my opinion, this is a good test. And if it was too big and it failed and it was overwhelming, then it wouldn't be fun. So now it's doing exactly what you did. Like you said, I don't think you could have invited everybody. You had it, and I think everything's perfect, because I think we have to see what happens, and everybody's going to come with ideals, and then we go for the next thing. And again, it could be everybody's like, all right, so we were in Tazewell, Virginia this time. What about this place? What about that place? And then, because I look at when Tom DeBlas and those other guys are doing those BJJ Heroes and all that, whatever it is, in Costa Rica, and it does not take much to set that up. So even when I mentioned earlier, when I was on that cruise in 2004, the Gracies, that wasn't their cruise ship, right? There was other people there doing a cruise. They just I don't know how you work that out, but that's what they do. They call and they probably said, hey, will you give me some kind of discount? I could probably have 100 people show up. And they're like, sure, okay, here's your rate. And then they do that, right? Because it's probably very similar to when I go on these work trips. I was just in Vegas, and they have a block of rooms at Caesars, right? I'm sure there's some kind of discount that they're getting. So I think it's a great idea. And then I think it'll evolve. This time be some jiu-jitsu, or I don't know if you got some stand-up people going, but it could evolve into something else. And then you can make different things. It could be an affiliation getaway, or it could be a friend getaway, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, and I think I kind of want a mix of that, right? I want a mix of that BJJ Heroes / hey, this is just a group of guys that we get together, because I want all of the fun that happens when we go to the Butch parties, right? When you invite us after promotion night, you invite us back to your house and watch fights or whatever it is that night. I want a little mix of that, a little mix of a jiu-jitsu seminar, and then also getting away from everyday life. Right. So, and it doesn't have to be a long vacation, because a lot of those things, they're 7 days, 6, 7 days. And it's almost too much. But to do it for 4 nights or 3 nights and 4 days, I think that's doable.
It is. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, because there's a, again, I was just in Vegas. There's a time when, and that was there. I wasn't training, but I woke up one day and I've been here too long. That's what I was trying to change my flight, everything. I mean, I was like, it's too much. It was too much partying, right? Which would be the same thing for jujitsu. Like if we're doing jujitsu, but drinking every night and doing this, at some point you're mentally, physically exhausted. You're like, it's too much, which again, are you in, is this an open invite? Is it like to like your wives and family? Are you trying, or what's your, I don't even know, to be honest.
Currently right now, it's just to the guys. So it's kind of a guys getaway. I called it the brocation.
Yes, that's right.
So it's kind of like just the guys getting away for a couple days from everything that's going on at home, and kind of getting back. And we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I've struggled a little bit with the depression of being in a new place away from all your friends and family that you're used to being around. Obviously, I left Bobcat, so I've struggled dealing with those emotions. That being said, everything's great down here, and I've got no reasons to be upset. I just miss people, and so, like I said, some of this is awfully selfish of me because I'm just trying to get my favorite people back together. But it's also one of those things where it's like, it's nice to get away from all of the other responsibilities of life. We do it when we go to jiu-jitsu for an hour and a half. And kind of part of what I was thinking was like, it would be nice to get away from that for a couple days. Yeah. And you sort of do that when you go on vacation with the family. But even then, you still have the kids are fighting together they spilled stuff all over the floor in the rental at the Airbnb, and now we've got everybody's crying because they don't want to get up early and go to the park that you're at, if you're at Disney World, and I don't want to walk, and I want to get away from that too.
Yeah, no, and I think it's going to be perfect, man. I think it's hopefully a start to something that's going to be huge. I mean, that's the thing. Like, again, I think we both have a vision, and then making this, I think that'll be another challenge, right? Is that this, after this one's out of the way, and everything probably be perfect, but there's always a thing that you're like, all right, let's do this next time, and everybody's gonna have some ideas. And I think personally, man, it could be something amazing. I hope, right? And then, or maybe not, maybe all the people we know are like, I can never get away. That it's not right, but maybe, and then even at that, maybe we can evolve it into a day or two, right, or something, who knows. But the point is, just for all those things, like that's the point of, like you mentioned, those parties and stuff, like that's literally the point. Like, one, obviously I feel like I'm pretty decent at entertaining people because it's my other job, like, so I'm like, why don't I take those talents and then give it to the gym? And the other part is giving back to the people that give to me every day, right? It's a friendship. So that's why I always like have a quote unquote like impromptu talent show, right, where we sing and play guitar and do goofy stuff. Like we, last time we sang karaoke, right? Like my wife was shocked. She's like, I couldn't believe that you went up there, and then I'm singing like Du Hast German song, like, but the point is to do goofy stuff and have fun and like and do stuff maybe we never do. Like we did comedy a few times, right? We did like all this random stuff, had live bands and stuff, but like that's the point, is just for exactly what you said, to give back to our friends in like a unique kind of weird way.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is like, I don't know how many guys you train with that you don't know anything about them other than they come to jiu-jitsu on Tuesdays, Thursdays.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like that is one of those things where it's like, you can try and get in that personal relationship stuff with those guys, but like, it's hard for me. I got 8 to 15 students that are there that night, and I'm trying to make sure that we get through this white to blue belt curriculum, and that everybody is doing this, the hip bump sweep, or that they're doing the arm bar from guard properly. And in that time, I also have warm-ups to run. We have rolling at the end, and I've got to make a personal connection with all these folks. Yeah. And so like, I don't, there are a lot of guys I train with. I don't know what they do for a living. I don't know if I might know if they're married, but I don't know if they have kids. If they have kids, I don't know how old their kids are.
Yeah.
And so like, it's nice to have these opportunities where hey, we can sit down and talk about just a little bit more than jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, that's huge, really. I mean, that's what I've always preached. And I think what makes our quote unquote affiliation different, right, is that we're legit friends, right? Meaning that that's again, that's why we do all these things. And part of being friends is hanging out together, right? And doing this kind of stuff. And then once you do that, you connect on a different level. It even like we could spend all night, and we have, right? Like a group of us sitting by a pool or doing whatever. And we might not get too personal, but we've bonded after the end of that. I don't even know what we've said the most. Maybe we're just making each other laugh. But after that's over, there's like we know each other in a different way, which is huge, right? So anyway, yeah, I think with that coming up, that's going to be huge. And the other thing, since I've got you on here, that has nothing to do with that, I would love to get down to North Carolina to meet those guys too. So that's for like, might as well bring it up because we're on here, but let's get that scheduled too. Like, just again, it's nothing like I'm obviously not doing anything amazing, but what is amazing is what I just said. Like, when else am I going to see Wade and all those guys, right? Probably it's hard for you guys, them to come here, nor do they really need to. They don't, those guys, no matter how much we tell them it's a fun trip, I know it's far. And I've heard that too. And people say, yeah, it's fun. You'll have, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm thinking about the 5-hour drive there and the 5-hour back. It can't be that fun, right?
Right.
It's like,
Right.
it is. But once we all connect in that way, then they're going to be like, okay, I got you. Like, yeah, maybe we can do that. Even if not, we can recreate that down that way. And, the time that I was there for the wedding, I mean, seeing Wade that night was fun. And, all of us just hanging in a weird place, drinking was fun, and all the stories that we got. And I mean, there's never a night that we don't have all the stories. Like, there's still stuff from that little trip that I'm like, you did what? Like, people are obviously losing keys. They were doing, we're playing cornhole with different people and challenging different people and doing all this stuff. It was like so many stories in just this little bit of time that, which is awesome, right? Like, I love all that stuff. So,
Well, and kind of for us, just give us the weekend that you want to come down. If we have a little bit of advance notice, I can try and make sure that as many people as possible are there. But just kind of like let me know when you're free, and we'll make that happen.
Well, what I'll do too. Sorry, I was writing a little text to
No
Nathan,
worries.
our next guest, because he's waiting in line and calling me to make sure he's not messing anything up. But yeah. So what I'll do, this is the other thing about speaking things out loud, is because that way I want to make sure they get done. So the next thing is just getting some open days, and we'll get that done. And I think, as far as our jiu-jitsu journey, everything we got going, man, we've got a lot going on and a lot of good stuff. I mean, to kind of finish this, I'm excited the little bit of changes that we're doing with the podcast too. Meaning, obviously I'm trying to get it organized for me, because like, I think that's going to be a big deal. Because what happens sometimes too is we have, especially now, it seems like we have a lot of people that want to get on, right? And if there's, I want to make sure we do it in a right manner that makes everybody happy, that makes us happy too. But the other thing too is people got to understand, and we have to do a good job about this too in the future, is that, man, I do not like, if we book somebody for Sunday and they pull out 2 hours before, there's nothing that makes me matter, right? There is nothing. Like, that one person did that. I'll tell you later who it is, but I will never talk to those people again. Just the way that they were, like, after it, like, and I'm sure they meant nothing by it, but they canceled, and they didn't really, I just didn't like it. And it annoys me, because it puts us, like, if you're like, I just can't make it, well, that's cool, but what about us that we spent all night? There's 2 of us. I've rearranged everything for this, right? So maybe the other thing is to have something on backup, right? Like, that's why I'm trying to get more organized and not hate people that screw me over like that. But so, like,
yeah, well, and I'm just going to put it out there to anybody that's listening to this. If you have any skills as far as like helping out with the idea of YouTube stuff, or with maybe making, little clips or something like that, or suggestions even, if you could shoot us at the restaurant at gmail.com, and just shoot us a message saying, hey, this is how I can help. I would like to be interested. We don't have any money to give to you right now, but it could be something later on. I don't know. But right now, it's just like, we are doing this in our free time. This is in between everything else we do. And I'm not saying that to like get any kind of like love or anything. I just want everybody to know that, like, I know that Butch has taken a lot of once again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, taking time away from my family. There are times where I tell my wife that, hey, I'm going to go do a couple podcasts with Butch, and then her eyes roll, and she's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be upstairs cooking dinner.
Yeah.
And that, like, that's time away from her. So when we do this, like, again, we're doing this because we love each other and we're good friends, but also, like, we feel like we're doing something for you guys. And hopefully you enjoy it. And if you do, and you can help, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful, and I think it's right. And hopefully, anybody does want to be a part of it, they'll be part of something great. But the point of this, and I don't even think you and I really talked about this, other than connecting and getting people on, but and I'm sure our vision we haven't even talked about a vision, but I think a vision will change at some point. But my vision currently is just shining a light on people that would never get a light shined on them. Now, I don't mean that in a derogatory, but because there's going to be some that would and then some that wouldn't, right? We've had Jake Shields on and Dean Lister and some famous people. So obviously they will, and even not so-called famous people that have, but the point is to, have somebody interesting. And obviously we've had a lot of Ohio and West Virginia people because that's who we know, but that's the point, is to shine a light on some local people. And I would love to have, like, if we have super fights at the WVGO, like, to have those guys on. Zach Humberson was one of the people that met. He's like, I loved when we did that, and he could kind of hype the matches and do some stuff. And that's the point, is to shine a light on local. We're not ever going to be, I'm not saying that we wouldn't want to be, but we're never going to be that giant Joe Rogan thing. And like, because we can't be, because there's a niche of that we're in, right? It's just, so I think our niche is going to be to shine a light on those local people. And that's cool. Like, I like having a conversation with somebody local that, if you want to compare it to a Joe Rogan thing, like that Bigfoot guy that we had, right? Like, he's Russ Jones, like, he actually is kind of famous, like, ironically, or coincidentally, however you use the word, but for us as a local West Virginia guy, so it's not a national syndicated thing where now we're saying, hey, this is the president of West Virginia Bigfoot Society. It has zero to do with jiu-jitsu, but however, he does train at the gym, and that's why he's here, and we can bring it back that way. And the same thing with guys that get ready for jiu-jitsu tournaments, MMA fights, kickboxing, boxing. You might not be doing it in the scale of the UFC or Glory or something like that, but you're doing it in a scale that's important to our little crowd. And then maybe we can shine a light on that way. And I think that's kind of neat. We could be the guys that give a platform and a light to those people that definitely like it, right? Who doesn't like to be on a podcast and sit and talk to for an hour or two? I think people do it. Like the last one we did with Brittany Vaughn, I think everybody really liked it, right? And we didn't know we were going to go with that one. Like, we're friends with Brittany, but we didn't know, like, how to address certain issues. Should we address certain issues? When it turned out that we're already friends, and it didn't matter once we start talking. And that's the point. Like, we connected on a deeper level, and I think it helped other people connect. I saw people wanting already to trash her without even know her. And I looked at some comments, and they did, and people defended her, and they didn't listen to anything that had it on. They're already in a preconceived notion of, like, here's another person doing this thing that I don't like, and blah, blah, blah. And that's not what that was all about. Like, people that actually listened were like, I saw some comments, I think I sent you, that are like, man, that was a really emotional episode, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's the point, right? Like, we're doing something a little bit different, hopefully. And right. And that's the vision, to like, it's hard because we listen to certain podcasts and you don't want to be that person, right? Like,
yeah. And that's the thing, is like, we're not trying to emulate anybody, and we're trying to find our own voice doing this. I think the voice that we have more than anything is just two guys who, this is where I come from. I think the thing that makes me your friend is kind of what I see in what I try and be in myself, is I want to be good to people, and I want to give people all the opportunities that I can to better themselves. Yes. And in the process, I hope I better myself in doing it. And so, like, that's what I see in this, is like, it's an opportunity for me to not only, like, learn a little bit of something from people, but also to, like, maybe if this is how I can help. And it's what you've always been about, is helping people in your community, in your area, in jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, but like, just helping people be better people. And I hope that's what's coming from this. I know I've grown from it. I know I've grown from being your friend. I've grown from being in jujitsu. I've grown from the people that I've been around in jujitsu. And if I have all this to learn from those people, I think people who are listening to this can also learn something from that.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. And that's a good place for us to stop on this one too. I think we can really actually whittle that down, come up with a mission statement that we don't need to do because nobody ever read it. But that's essentially what it is giving people an opportunity. And then after that opportunity, it's where they run with it, right? We do hope the opportunity makes them a better person, makes us better. But opportunities are just opportunities, right? You have to seize them, so hopefully we'll just keep doing some good stuff. And again, that was beautiful. So on to the next one, right? I think this is a good episode, just trying to get to where we were or where we are, where we need to be, what's coming up, which is a lot of good stuff. So man, yeah, I appreciate it, man. Like, I thank you for doing this one too. I guess, hopefully people don't mind just hearing you and I talk, but
I think it was a nice quick one that we can put in the can and release in a couple weeks.
Yes. All right. Perfect. All right.
All right, brother.
That's us, man. Let's sign off. Go ahead, Gary.
All right. Thank you guys for listening to the restaurant again. Butch Hiles, Gary Hashman. We'll see you on the next one. Love you, Butch.
All right. Love you, man. Thank you.
Thank you.